Welcome to this mini series where we will be delving into middle childhood and how to parent our preteens. I'm really excited to have you on this journey with me for the next few weeks, where we will be looking at the various aspects of middle childhood development and how we can support our kids best. Alright, so my name is Miss Inga Smith. I am the registered counselor here at HIS who work with your children. We do some soft skills and we do the individual counseling sessions. Some of you already know me and some of you don't, so very welcome to those who haven't met me yet. I have been working in psychology for a long time. I've been lecturing as well for 3 years now at South African College of Applied Psychology, and I especially practice in the area of working with children and adolescents. So I hope that I get to impart a bit of the knowledge that I've gained over the years working with children in practice, and also from the theoretical knowledge on which we can base and understand their development a bit better. Alright, so we are going to first start looking at the physical development of the child, or the middle childhood phase. We're going to look at the development of the brain, the body, and then sexuality, and then going to look today at the cognitive and moral development as well. On the next sessions, we will have a look at the psychosocial development, the emotional development, the psychological distress, how that looks in children, and then building resilience. So today's section is going to be a bit shorter and not too in-depth, as the body of what we're going to talk about is going to be the psychosocial and emotional development of children. Alright, physical development in middle childhood. Alright, before we get started into the body of what we're going to be chatting about today, I just want to note that in the newsletter, there's a link to a document. The document is a summary of notes that you can go through, which have writings of Dr. Rinda Blom in, which is really, really good. It's, in essence, summary notes of understanding children and how we can parent them in a way that it enables them to mature, I want to say, with less angst. So it's a really good resource. It's not a thick read, but it's very content rich. Okay, back to the developing brain. Alright, so there are two major growth spurts that happen at the age of 6 and the age of 10. And this is when new synapses are created in the brain. This in essence means that the child's frontal lobe has greater access to the various areas in the frontal lobe. So this means that your children are able to pay greater attention to what they are doing, and their executive functioning is starting to develop a lot. So they start having the opportunity and the potential to start regulating their emotions, not just doing things because they want it. So that's a big part of why this stage is so important in learning and what we illustrate as parents about acceptable social behavior and what is positive and what is negative in terms of the outcomes of the things that we do. So this is a very important part in the social learning that a child experiences, because now they get to actually put the puzzle pieces together in their executive functioning and have more complex ways of thinking about situations and why things might be happening the way that they do. So there it also states that between the age of 6 and 11, children show drastic improvement in their learning, memory, and problem solving, because their executive functioning is developing a lot. So their thinking becomes more rational, complex, and more adult-like. Just a side note that I put in here, physical activity is very important in this stage of development for the brain and for the body. So extramural activities is really a good thing. or going on hiking adventures, or walking the dog in the afternoons. It's really important for the children to be active in this middle childhood phase. Ooh, the body and puberty. This topic that we all love very much. Alright, so let's jump in. I'm going to start with females. So puberty, as you know, is the time when a child becomes sexually mature. This usually starts for females around the age of 10 and 14, and I know it sometimes catches us off guard, because they are still so small and so little. And I think this is a big thing that we kind of have to desensitize ourselves in terms of knowing that this is going to happen when my child is most likely in grade 6, grade 7, and that we change the perspective of my child is too small or too little or too innocent, because it keeps us from talking about important subjects such as puberty and sexuality and sex. And I know it's a challenging thing to do, but it is a very important part of the middle childhood phase, where we're wanting to set up our children for success. So when they enter into the high school setting, they are not so susceptible to peer pressure, especially in terms of sexuality and what is okay and what is not. So understanding themselves and their bodies is very important, and it gives them a sense of self-confidence that what they are going through is normal and it's natural, and they know where their boundaries are, what is okay and what is not. Okay, so females, usually by the age of 9, girls are typically taller than boys. You can see this so much in the school setting. Often girls in counseling sessions say that they feel so big because they're taller than the boys. So that's just something to note. If your child is starting to feel a bit self-conscious that she's taller than all the rest of the kids in the class, that you can reassure her, you know what, all of them are still going to get much taller than you, and this is very normal, that you are not big or a giant or whatever they like to call themselves, but that this is actually so normal. And usually if they grow faster, they usually tend to ultimately be a bit shorter than those, and especially the boys that start growing later. Okay, the first sign of puberty is usually the breast starting to develop, then the hair grows in the pubic areas and armpits, and menarche begins, so their period then begins. This is an important aspect to inform your child about, so that they are not caught off guard or feel that it is something they have to be ashamed of. This is very, very important, because our sense of our self-esteem and the way that we feel especially about our bodies, it gets formed in the way that we speak about these things. Is it something that we don't ever discuss? You don't ask about it, you don't talk to your parents about it, then shame becomes attached to it, and that makes kids especially uncomfortable with their bodies, and that body dysmorphia and disruptive eating behavior is quite a big link to this time of puberty, where a discomfort is present in the individuals, and a sense of shame. So we really don't want to engage in that. The uncomfortableness is going to be there, whether we like it or not. It is uncomfortable. It is weird. And you can say that to your child and make them feel normal. Here I wrote down, am I normal? That is the question running through their minds. Are they normal? Do other kids also have hair under their armpits? Do they also start wearing bras? So these are really things to, I want to say, not shy away from in conversation, but to actually speak about it. When your child brings it up, it is because they are not sure. And we don't want to create a situation where they don't want to talk to us, because if they bring up a certain topic, we shut down. So it tells them, like, I can't speak about this, so I keep it to myself. And when I keep it to myself, I go and search online and I ask friends and I get all the wrong messages. Okay, then for the males, puberty usually begins when the testicles and the penis get bigger, hair grows in pubic areas and armpits, their muscles grow and their voice deepens, their voice breaks as we call it, facial hair starts developing, and seminarche also takes place. So this is between ages of 12 and 16. So here you can see the 2-year discrepancy between the boys and the girls. This is especially seen, oh my goodness, if I think now the year 7's how the girls are usually so over the boys because they are just immature and not there, and the boys are still playing and having fun, and the girls are going into this new stage of being very socially aware, and that place where they start to compare themselves to others. Here I also noted that sensitivity is needed when discussing any body changes that occurs with your child. Even little things can kind of get stuck to them, in essence that they start creating a self-concept based on what was said about them. So yes, I was the fat child, or I am the fat child, or I am even like the skinniness. So saying you're too skinny, those types of messages really get stuck and become repetitive because they are so extremely self-conscious about their physical development in this stage, especially when puberty starts. We don't want to put extra shame or uncomfortableness on them, or labels, your zit face, all those types of things, or your face looks like a chocolate chip cookie or whatever. We sometimes make these jokes, but for them it's not really taken as a joke. So just to be mindful of things like that. And then obviously acne and growth spurts happen. Alright, sexual identity. So in adolescence, sexual identity is, I want to say, one of the most biggest aspects. So pre-puberty and in middle childhood, it's important that you know that sex differences are being recognized as the children become less egocentric. So they become aware of the differences between themselves and others. And in that place, they might start experiencing an attachment, or what they say, a like to a certain peer. And that's where some of them speak about having a crush, or they dating somebody, but then it means that they sit together during lunch. So when your kids start to speak about these things, I think it's an important place where you can have a conversation about it and actually ask them, what even is dating? So many times when they say they're dating somebody, I'm thinking, what what are you dating? Like, how are you dating when you're 12? And then just to get a better sense of what it is that dating means to them, because it's not dating as we do in the adult world, but it's different. So to actually ask about that and see what they understand about dating and when you like someone. Here you can see that sexual identity is how we think of ourselves in terms of who we are romantically or sexually attracted to, and what gender we identify as. So starting to think and feel differently about different people is a normal part of growing up. This also connects to peers in terms of friendships. Usually earlier on in middle childhood, we have same-sex peers, and which later we start having peers from different sex than ours. So this is also a very normal part of development. Okay, the talk. All right, a survey of South Africa. I'm going to throw some, let me just right off the bat, I'm going to throw some statistics at you. South African statistics from 2009. Because it's hard to get statistics in South Africa, but just to make us more aware of the importance of equipping our children to deal with the amount of sex seen in the world, because it's very prevalent. Okay, let's start. Alright, so here we can see that about 13% of adolescents reported having sex by the age of 13, and 69% of them did not use contraceptives. Approximately 1/3 of young people have had sex by the time that they reach 15. So this is a bit unsettling, or at least makes us definitely aware of the importance of having the talk, so that there's no ignorance about what sex is and the consequences of it. That it's not a taboo to ask your parents questions about it, rather than searching online and finding who knows what. So some tips that I have seen works good when discussing sex: what it is, how does it look, what does it mean, what is the consequences, what is the joys, all of that, is to not be afraid to ask your children. If you hear they chatting about things, jump in, have a conversation, ask them about what it is that they saw, that they heard. I also recommend not having a very formal sit down, because this creates a lot of uncomfort in the children, and most likely yourself as well. So a good way to have the talk is to bring it in conversation, especially if you see your child is becoming more aware, or they ask about what they just saw on the television. You can incorporate books as well, educational books, and have them read the books, and then you have a chat after it, or in essence have it be more conversational, so that they feel so that they feel comfortable to ask you questions, and not like it's a reprimand type of situation, and too serious, because that makes us be on guard and not want to share or ask questions that might be embarrassing. And then sex slang. So this is more towards the teenage phase, but to understand their lingo, because they have different words themselves within their peer groups that they call certain sexual acts or things that they saw on TikTok. So to be aware of what's happening in the peer groups, what's the slang for this, that, and the other thing, it kind of just helps you listen out for things that might be important to discuss. Here I also just mentioned that sexual grooming starts in childhood, and it's oftentimes connected to desensitizing children to sex or sexual acts or anything of a sexual nature. So even the shows that we watch can make kids desensitized to sex, and it doesn't teach them the necessary boundaries in which sex is safe and which it is not. So this is an important part of connecting to the talk, that it's not just about sex, but about your views, your values, your boundaries within your sexuality. Pornography. All right, this is the one I wanted to touch on. A lot of the children I see has had a lot of struggle with this, and primary school children. So this isn't something that only happens in adolescence or in their teenage years. Most children that have addictive pornographic behavior or use pornography or look at pornography starts at around grade 4, 5, 6, 7. So I just wanted to touch on that it's addictive because it activates the reward center and one becomes powerless. So especially because your children's prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, that rational decision making, thinking about future, thinking about consequences, it's not so developed. So it's very instinctive on emotion. It feels good, it looks good, it makes me good, or makes me feel good. So that's an important part to recognize, that it is an addictive, I don't want to call it an addictive, it can become an addictive activity. Watching of pornography has been related to aggression and aggressive sexual behavior, relationship problems, low confidence, self-esteem, and body image challenges, especially in this time where their bodies change so much and they are exposed to images of people whose bodies do not look at all like theirs. So a lot of questions regarding their body image comes up. Here I just wanted to note the hardship that our children experience in terms of their access to pornography. Internet pornography is so easily accessible. It pops up by the side windows of the games that they play, and this I've heard firsthand, how they would play a game and then something pops up and it looks interesting and I click on it and there goes the spiral. And then just to be aware of that as well and put the necessary safety measures in place. So that is blocking certain websites, maybe using parental control apps, just to safeguard against the accidental and I want to say the accidental access of porn, or the unaccidental, because it's not always by accident, but to just safeguard our kids to be a bit of the rational mind in this unrational time. And here I just noted again, it greatly influences their perception of themselves. Sexting and nude photos, I just wanted to make a comment on this as well. The distribution of nude photographs of individuals under 18 is considered a criminal offense against the law because it's the sending of pornographic materials of underage people or minors. So that's even if a child sends a photo of themselves to another child. This is very important to teach your children not to do this, because their record is going to be there forever online, and there are actually criminal consequences that can come from that impulsive decision to send a photo. Porn and mental health. So lethargy and lack of motivation, brain fog and concentration problems, social anxiety and social isolation, elevated stress response, susceptibility to other addictions are all a part of the consequences of extended pornography viewing and use. A lot of times it mimics ADHD-like symptomology because the mind is in that constant wanting more, and also the withdrawing, and I can only think of it, and you are not present in essence. So a lot of times it has ADHD type symptomology. Okay, I think I'm going to stop us there for today. I think we've had about 30 minutes almost together. So I will have us chat about the cognitive and moral development along with the psychosocial development next week, which will really be our core topics when we get to the psychosocial. And then I really hope that this session was informative. I hope you have questions. That's a real important part, is that it provokes questions for you. And if you have questions, that you send them in, because I'm very sure that most parents have the same questions, and your questions might spark other discussions with parents. And I think that's an important part of being a community and raising our children together, so it doesn't seem so isolated and lonely and scary when we have to deal with all these gazillion things happening in our children's world alongside the things that are happening in our own world. So I really hope that this mini-series opens the door for more interactive communication, and where I can play the part of helping where I can. So that it's not just a giving of information, but an actual discussion about it. All right, until next week.